Hey everyone, my guest today is the Academy Award-winning screenwriter, director, and playwright Kenneth Lonergan. His plays include Lobby Hero, The Waverly Gallery, This Is Our Youth, and Hold On to Me, Darling. His screenplays include You Can Count on Me, Margaret, and Manchester by the Sea. He has one of the most respected and he is one of the most respected and prolific artists of our generation, and I am so thrilled to have my dear friend Kenneth Lonergan on the podcast today. Hello.
Hi, Ilana. How are you?
I am very well. Okay, there have been so many reasons why I've wanted to have you on the podcast, but I thought going back to the beginning of sort of your first play that was a really big splash in New York City that continues to be done all around the world and probably in every college in the world as well. I want to talk about Lobby Hero. I think it premiered in 2001.
Yeah, 2001 or 2002. I'm not sure which. I think 2001.
Okay,
You
so
know what? It might have been 2000, as a matter of
okay,
fact.
well, decades ago at
Somewhere in
this
there.
point, which
Yes.
means that it was kind of marinating in your mind as an idea for a play like 24 years ago, something like that. And the reason we're talking about that play specifically is on November 14th
15th, 14th, yes,
in
14th.
New York City for a beautiful art institution called the Center at West Park, which we can get to. They're doing a benefit reading with the fancy cast of Casey Affleck, Jamie Hector, Aubrey Plaza, Josh Radnor, and it's bringing back the original director, Mark Brokaw. So that's a lot of intro, and now I want to shut off my mic for a while and just talk to me about, if you can go back in time, to when this play became an idea for you. Where were you in your life? Where were you living? What was happening? And why Lobby Hero?
The impetus for it was I don't know what year it was exactly. It was in the 90s, I guess, probably early 90s, and I was at Naked Angels Theater Company where we both spent a lot of time over the years back then, and you and I mean, and I was right. There was a one-act play that it came from called The Heartsick Pioneer, which was about a woman police officer and a man security guard waiting in the lobby for the police officer's partner to come downstairs. And that was just like a 12 or 15-page one-act play, and then it later grew into becoming a full-length play about, I don't know, 5 years later.
Was the original piece part of an issues project? Was there a prompt?
Oh yes, the prompt was very generic. Well, generic is the wrong word. It was extremely it's a very wide category.
Wide open. Yeah.
It was called women. So you were allowed to write anything you wanted about women. So it took a while to narrow it down what I wanted to do. And then all I remember really is at some point the image of two people, of two uniformed beings standing next to each other. One is a young woman police officer, and the other is a young man security guard. And they're both wearing nearly identical uniforms, only she's armed and he's not. And he's trying to chat her up basically, and she doesn't like it because she's on duty. And then it unfolds after that. And I guess, I don't know, it wasn't exactly unusual for there to be female police officers in the 90s, but the female police officers in the 90s were of maybe the second generation of female cops who are actually like on the beat and not meter maids. Second, third, maybe. Obviously there's exceptions going all the way back. Even to the 50s, they had undercover plainclothes police women, which I didn't know until I watched it on an old show on TV. But anyway, so the idea was just about a difficulty being trying to be a policeman or a cop, and also whether you're being treated like a cop or like a girl by someone who's actually not heavily armed as you are. So that was just sort of that was the specific beginning of the idea. And then it became a full-length play over time. with
Do
two more
you know
characters.
Mark Brokaw, the director who's also gone on to be prolific in his own right? How did that come together, the pairing of the two of you and your play?
So Mark was the director of This Is Our Youth, which was the play I had done before that, which we did at the New Group. And I'd met him just through interviewing different directors that the artistic director of the New Group had set up for me when they decided to do the play. And I had a very good experience with Mark on This Is Our Youth. And so that Lobby Hero was, I guess it was the third play. I guess I'd done one more play in between, the Waverly Gallery, but then when we did but that already had a director sort of involved. And then when we ended up doing Lobby Hero a few years later, I guess 4 years later, Mark seemed like a really good idea, and he did a wonderful job.
Yeah, and that was an extraordinary cast. You had Glenn Fitzgerald and Heather Burns and
Yeah.
Tate Donovan and Dion Graham.
Yeah.
It was such an extraordinary production. I really remember it really vividly. You grew up in New York. You're a city kid. Did
Yeah.
you have any interactions of your own with police officers in your youth or in your day?
Not so much. I grew up on the Upper West Side, so it wasn't like I grew up in a tough neighborhood with a lot of cops around knocking us around or giving us guidance or anything like that. So no, not especially. But so I don't exactly know where all that came from, but yeah. So the full length version has 2 security guards and 2 police officers instead of just 1 security guard and 1 police officer. But no, I didn't have a lot of personal experience with cops. I did a certain amount of research to make sure I wasn't getting anything terribly wrong. And I remember watching these 2 police officers, just overheard dialogue really, but there was an older male police officer with a younger female partner, and all that I recall really was that he was sort of doing, I guess I don't like this word very much, but somewhat performative conversation, and he was sounded like he was a little bit putting on being a tough cop, even though he was actually a tough cop, but he was also acting like a tough cop. And she, it seemed to me, was kind of trying to do the same, but younger and less experienced. And I just thought that was just sort of an interesting dynamic. She seemed a bit nervous to me, and he seemed sort of a bit like a blowhard to me. And that was just a fleeting impression, but it stuck with me, and I think somewhat relates to the characters in Lobby Hero as it developed over time.
When you think back to, a lot of people listening to this are just huge fans of your work and so appreciative of what it's meant to them and how it's hit them in different moments in their lives. When you think back, but also a lot of people want to write as well. So thinking back to like your youth and your introduction to theater and writers that you love, like when did you begin? Were you a voracious reader as a kid?
I was a reader. I don't know if I was particularly voracious. It was more common to read all the time back then than it is now, unfortunately. So, but I don't think, I mean, I read, a normal amount, which is a lot more than a normal amount now, I think, for younger people.
Did you go to the theater a lot as a New York kid?
I did. I get to the theater a lot. I mostly like movies. I went to the theater sporadically, as I still do. I love the theater. I did a lot of theater in high school, and that's where I really fell in love with it. But I wasn't one of these kids with a lot of playbills up in his room or anything like that. But like a wall of the musicals that I'd seen.
I can see it. I know the image you're describing.
So I wasn't like a theater lover as an audience, but I did love doing it in high school. Just all of it, acting and writing and being backstage and building the sets and all that, all those things you do in high school that are so much fun. And then then life usually makes you specialize later on. But mostly I think I grew up on movies more than theater, I'd have to say.
And Matthew Broderick appears in many things that you've written on screen and on stage. Did you guys go to high school together?
Yes, we did. We met when we were 15 years old, auditioning for A Midsummer Night's Dream, where he ended up playing snout, the wall, and I ended up playing Demetrius, one of the four lovers, which was not my greatest stage role, I have to say, but he was very good as the wall, and he had a really good wall costume, which he made himself.
Like he really looked like a wall.
He looked a lot like a wall, and he had it says, "Would I one snout by name be in such a wall as I would have you think that did have in it a crannied hole or chink, through which the lovers Pyramus and Thisbe did whisper very secretly. And when he said chink, he went chink to show the little hole in the wall that Pyramus and
I'm glad
Thisbe.
we're filming this as well, so there's a visual for people to see.
Oh
Were
yes,
you
sorry.
guys were
Yes,
you guys fast friends right away?
pretty quickly. I mean, there was a group of four of us who became very friendly during that production, and then as things go in high school, we sort of split off a little bit. But yeah, Matthew and I got very friendly in 10th grade and have stayed that way in the intervening, Jesus Christ, many, many years.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful, long-lasting friendship. His father was already a really established actor and someone people would recognize from TV shows. Was that the first time like you met someone who was a well-known actor? Did you know other sort of successful artists growing up?
No, I didn't. I think Jimmy Broderick was the first. Yeah, I think so. I think he was the first person who was ever on TV or anything like that that I saw in real life. And I actually remember seeing him for the first time in the lobby of Walden, our high school, and it's that weird shock you get when you see someone you've famous who you've only seen on the screen somehow, and then they're there in the same room with you, and there's a very weird, it's a weird visual feeling that it's a weird, I don't know, there's something strange about it that happens. It doesn't look like anything else in life. They're suddenly there, and they look like they look on TV, not quite, but they seem in some way more, I don't know, like they're shot from a different roll of film than everybody else or something. But I
Yeah.
remember that. And then when I was very little, I liked Lily Tomlin, who was on Laugh-In when I was a kid. And my grandmother, she came into my grandmother's art gallery one time, and my grandmother put her on the phone, and I was so starstruck that I actually was unable to speak. And she said, "Hi, Kenny, how are you?" Because there was this little kid on the phone, and I actually couldn't talk. That was actually my
Wow.
first celebrity encounter.
Have you met Lily Tomlin since and shared that story with her?
I never have, no.
All right, well, she'll hear it now and she's going to be thrilled. So thinking back to sort of the beginning of your instincts as a writer, the first time I remember reading something of yours is I was asked to do a reading of a play called Judith, and in it were Matthew Broderick and Helen Hunt. That's how I met them.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I became aware of you as a writer and how joyous your dialogue is to say. You've always had a really keen ear for making, and it seems like it should be easy, but it's not for everyone, for making people talk like people talk. Um, Although you can quote Shakespeare beautifully, as
That
we've
was
just
it.
seen, as
That
well as,
was all, that was everything I could remember from Shakespeare.
Um, do you think that's something that you just have had an innate talent for, or over the years, was it trial and error in your own process to make people talk like real people?
I think I just have, I think for one thing, I have a good ear for dialogue, whatever that is, but and I consciously made an effort and still make an effort to make all the characters speak in their own way. And I try to avoid uh, clever dialogue that's cleverer than people might actually be, although you do tend to write a bit expressionistically anyway, no matter, if you listen, all you have to do is watch, I don't know, one of those filmed arguments on YouTube, like someone being arrested or like two people getting into a fight in the street, and you realize that every fight scene every argument scene you've ever seen in television or movies is wrong. People just repeat themselves endlessly, and they don't say anything that interesting, and it takes them a lot longer to get through an argument than it does in a play or a movie. But having said that, it's fun to aim for verisimilitude, and I love writing dialogue, and I love listening to the way different people talk, and I've just always liked it, and I'm sure I have a good ear for it, just the way somebody might have a good ear for music. but I certainly made a conscious effort to cultivate it.
When I think about Lobby Hero and a lot of your work, the thing that is really always a takeaway for me is how unprecious it is, how the focus at the end of whatever piece I see you doing is not wrapping it up in a bow and sort of letting everyone leave the theater going, oh, that's resolved, but allowing things to just live the way they do in real life, where some things may be resolved and a lot isn't. And Lobby Hero is a perfect example of that. You have human beings, flawed and imperfect and striving to be the best they can be. And some fall short and some don't in the moment. When I know it's a long time ago to talk about it, but do you think you knew the ending of the play when you started?
I probably didn't. I don't quite remember how that, I don't remember the sequence exactly, but usually I at some point between when I start something and get about halfway through, I usually know what the very end is going to be. And if I don't, I have trouble. It's difficult to keep going. So I usually have an end point in mind before too long. And I don't actually recall, and it might even be like the last two lines of the play. But I don't really remember how far in advance I had the ending of Lobby Hero in mind, frankly.
What do you love about that play when you think about it? What makes you happy about Lobby Hero?
Well, it's very plot heavy, which is unusual for me. So, and I feel like I think it's handled pretty well. That was a challenge. One thing that I like about it that's surely technical, if that's the right word, is there's an immense amount of action off stage, which I think is brought on stage in a nice, smooth and not in a good way, in a it seems, I don't know, I can't find the word I'm looking for, but is a tremendous amount of exposition that because it's just in a lobby and everything that happens is happening off screen, as it were, off stage. So, and I think it was a challenge to get all that information on stage without it seeming expositional, and I feel like I did a good job with that. So that's something I'm proud of, and I mostly just like the characters, which is usually what I like best about anything I write that I'm happy with. And I don't know, I love the character of Dawn, the policewoman. I think she's very sensitive and also very much of a kind of a pit bull, and the combination proves to be her undoing in a way. And I really like all the characters, and they're a lot of fun to write. It was very hard to it was less of an organic process somehow, because there are two pairs of characters, and they all interact, but it's essentially, anyway, there are various combinations, and I had terrible trouble deciding which pair to start with, and it just wasn't an interesting process. But I just would decide it wasn't good to start with these. I have endless drafts of it in my computer, and more than other plays at the time. And I think that's because I just kept switching between William and Jeff, and or I'd start with Bill and Dawn, William, and I'd just go flip flop back and forth endlessly, which was quite tedious for me. But I'm pretty happy with how it ended up. It's sort of a pot boiler, which I've also never written before or since. I don't know, and I think the scenes play well, so I like that. There's one scene that's not even that integral to the plot that's my favorite scene, where two of the characters are just talking about their families and their backgrounds, and I really love that scene for some reason.
Is that a play that there's an adapted screenplay of? It is sitting on your desk? Is that something
No,
that has ever come up?
I've never adapted any play I've written for the movies or for TV. I wanted to, but it's never been something that's been it's never been what I wanted to be working on at the time. So it's always taken a back seat. And I'd really like to, but I'm not sure how to go about it in some cases. I think Lobby Hero would be actually easy to open up, because the action is somewhat crammed onto the stage in a heightened way. Not that much would happen over 2 or 3 days in that lobby in real life. So I think it could be easily opened up visually without destroying the integrity of the story. But my other, This Is Our Youth, my play about the teenagers, is much more difficult because there's no particular reason why they would leave. They may go outside and walk around, but there's not, there's no reason to bring in other characters or other settings particularly. Everything that happens essentially could happen in the room as it does. So that's, but no, I've never done that. I mean, I'd like to. It seems a bit tedious to me somehow, slogging through how to translate it from a stage play into a film. Maybe if I got someone to help me, that would work.
Yeah. I want to embarrass you for a minute because it's really a stunning thing, and you live long enough and surround yourself with really talented people. It happens more and more that you see them receiving these iconic awards that were unimaginable as a kid to think you would know someone winning an Oscar or know someone, and then suddenly we do, which is exciting. And I got to watch you accept an Oscar. I mean, on YouTube, I've watched you accept many awards for many different things, but on the night I was watching that ceremony, can you go back for a moment? And I hate to embarrass you, but I am, because you're a very, you're, I don't know, I don't think of you as maybe shy isn't the right word, but you're really good in front of a crowd, but mostly when at deflecting. And or talking about the work specifically, you're not great at just talking about Kenny Lonergan.
But it's all I think about.
That's what you think about, but talking
Yeah,
about it out loud is a
it's
different
different.
thing. Can you just take us back to that moment and what you were feeling and just what your memories are of that night?
Well, it was thrilling, of course. I mean, it's very thrilling. It's given a tremendous amount of importance. There's a lot of hoopla around it. If I have to examine it seriously, I think it's wrong to make too much of those things, except that they're a lot of fun and it's very gratifying, and everybody else makes such a big fuss about it. It's hard not, it's hard not to, and probably foolish not to ride that crest while it's happening. I mean, it's also, I feel like when I first got into the movies and my first movie got some attention, I was a little bit embarrassed to be enjoying the show busy aspect of it because I felt it showed bad character. But my friends who were in the film who were more experienced were just having fun, and they didn't take it that much more seriously than I did. But like Laura Linney and You Can Count on Me, was having fun with the experience, and because she was, she's a bit younger than I, but she'd been having a very successful career for much longer. And so she knew it doesn't happen very often that you get all that attention and all those accolades. And so she was just having a good time with it. And I was half having a good time with it and half ashamed of myself for enjoying all the shallow, let's see, show busy, crazy stuff that Hollywood lays on. So for Manchester by the Sea, which 16 years later, I think I was more able to enjoy the silly glam, attention
And
magnet part of it.
does it change things in terms of what happens to your career in the way that you expected?
Well, it's amazing how the seriousness with which people in the industry take those prizes is really something. Like I was a little surprised at how lasting that accolade is as a I don't know what the right word is, but people really take it seriously, and I perfectly happy to accept winning any prize for anything. And it's not like I don't think it was a good movie and I didn't deserve it, but we all know there are a million things that go into all that, and not least of which is the amount of money they spend in the campaigns. And it was promoted very well by Amazon, who distributed the film and was breaking into the movie business. So I had a lot of advantages that in terms of just the promotion and the publicity, and I'm well aware of that. So I was surprised at about how important it is to so many people in the industry, which has been great for me because it's a great you know, it's a nice little ribbon to have on your chest that make people want to work with you more. And I don't look at it that way. I think it's a fun prize, and it's fun and kind of silly, but you know, but also, you know, it's a, however you want to take it, it was more valuable as a professional bump than I realized it was going to be.
And did you know when you got up there that other than focusing on the thank yous for the film, how focused it would be on your stepfather and mom?
Well, you know, you have to prepare something. It's very intimidating. It's a huge auditorium full of very fancy people. And so it's a little bit nerve wracking, you know, you're hoping you win because it's nice to win. And but then if you do, you have to get up and make a very short speech with a lot of people looking at you. And I'm fairly comfortable. I love a mic, as Matthew once said about me, but with 60 seconds, it's a little bit different. So you prepare. Anyway, I knew what I was going to say more or less. And as usual, I didn't take any notes. So I was a little nervous that I wouldn't remember all of it.
There's kind of two camps of writers that or writer reputations. One is the happy writer and one is the tortured writer. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I didn't know there was a camp of happy writers.
They work mostly in the comic book area.
I think, yeah. Well, I mean, I think I don't feel tortured exactly. I think a lot of people think of me that way, and a lot of my friends describe me that way. But
why do you think that? Why do you think that's your reputation?
My facial expressions and the way I speak and everything I say.
But other than that, how did you like the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Other than that, I can't figure it out. I think I do worry a lot, and I fuss a lot, and I think I tend to skip over the good things and go right to the next problem, which does tend to make you someone who's always facing a negative rather than someone who's embracing a positive. But I feel that I have capacity for enthusiasm, and I take a lot. I mean, I've had a lot of people say a lot of, you know, people have sort of things that they say to writers and actors that they say to all writers and actors that they meet. And one of them is, one thing that people say to most writers is that, one thing that many people say to most writers is, oh, I'm sure you're never satisfied with your own work, which is completely untrue in my case. I'm often very satisfied with it. It takes a long time to get there. Like, so most of the things that I've finished, that I've put out in the world, I'm very pleased with. So it's not true. And I take a great deal of pleasure in them once they're finished. And there's always this or that you weren't able to do, and this or that shortfall. And, you know, I could tell you exactly where the problems are for this or that movie or play that I've written. But for the most part, I like them all. And I take a great deal of pleasure in it. So I don't think I'm tortured in that way. But the things that bother me about what I'm working on really bother me. But I think the grit in the engine, or whatever the phrase is what keeps you trying to move forward and make things better. Unfortunately, I wish a joyous feeling was what propelled you forward to working harder, but it's not. It's a feeling of anxiety that's going to stink and not be good enough.
When you're working on something, I'm sure you're writing something, you know, right now, you always are. Are you able to also turn it off and do other things in your life and day with people and friends that you love, or see stuff? Or when you're in the middle of writing something, is it hard for you to connect to other things during that process?
I have a real hard time doing anything except thinking I should be working on what I'm working on. And it doesn't mean I work on it all that much. But I have a nagging feeling that I shouldn't be doing anything else, which is not healthy and not helpful to the process. It's much better to go do other things and get some life, some blood running through get your blood moving around in your veins, or just get some fresh air, or go do something else that has nothing to do with what you're working on. And I think you come back to it much fresher. But one thing I definitely can improve on is doing just what you described, is going and doing something else without feeling that I should be at home working away. But if I have a really good day and a productive day, then I feel great going off and doing something else.
Do you create goals for yourself in terms of pages or not necessarily?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I have one thing that's happened with all my fabulous success is that all the external pressures have dropped considerably. Like, um, I don't, I was never great with deadlines, and now I pay almost no attention to them.
Mhm.
And I making a good living, so I'm not worried about money, and I'm very successful on up to a certain level. So, and my ambition is somewhat satisfied. Uh, I get very anxious when I'm worried I'm falling off, but I don't have this burning desire to be even more famous and successful. And I'm happy being at the mid of the mid level, or maybe the top of the mid level, or maybe the bottom of the top level at this point. But that's fine. I mean, I'm sure I have the same grandiose ambition that a lot of people have, but I don't, for some reason, I'm not as driven as I used to be. And so that's unfortunately makes me less productive. Um, I don't know. Also, I think you get older and you've just been doing it a lot longer, and you, I don't know. I don't know if it's a question of flagging energy, or I don't know. I have been actually very productive in the last few years, although I'm working on all these things that aren't finished yet, but there's a lot that I'm working on. But I don't, anyway, I don't think I quite put my nose to the grindstone the way I did when I was younger. And I think being more involved in the community and having like a place to go and to read things, or people you're interacting with makes kind of drives you forward in a way that just being on your own comfortably doesn't.
I want to ask you a, a question that I've never asked you. Just describe to me what you were like as a kid.
Just like this. Um, uh, I think I was just very much like this. I think I had sort of, I bit up and down in my moods. I was very interested in the arts. I was much more athletic. I still love to swim, but I did all sorts of more athletic things when I was a kid. I liked to, baseball and basketball and all that kind of thing. And I don't feel very different from how I did when I was a kid, except when I'm with my daughter, then I feel like a father, which is a very different from how I feel the rest of the time.
Do you have words for that?
Well, how do you mean?
Well, I haven't seen something that you've written yet, although most of your work feels so not autobiographical, although so much of you, of course, is in all the characters. Have you worked on a father-daughter piece?
Oh, actually, I am now, although I don't think it's me. I don't think it's me and my daughter at all. But no, I haven't really that I'm aware of. No, I don't think I have. Um, No, I don't know. If I know it's me, then I tend to not get anywhere. Usually it has to be disguised in some, usually it's got to come out in some other form. And then later I'm like, oh, I see how that's me. But if I know it's me, it kind of falls flat for some reason.
I just want to tell listeners that the ambient sounds of life happening in the world where Kenny Lonergan is right now is one of your most favorite actresses on the planet, J. Smith Cameron. So just so you know, even though she may not be part of the interview, you're getting to hear like her opening and closing a refrigerator door, maybe, or maybe she wants to say hi. That's up to her. But either way, how lucky are we?
Jay, you want to say hi for a second? Well, bye, Maddie. Well, Jay, you want to come say hi for a minute? Yes. She does in a minute, but not this
No
minute.
worries, no worries. I was pleased just to let my audience know that those
We'll put it up to
footsteps
the background.
belonged to the great award-winning actress.
Here
All
she
right,
comes.
I want to talk, is she coming over?
Coming to say
Just
hello.
come and
for a
say
second.
hi.
Jay,
there.
hi. I
How's it
want you to
going?
know I voted and everyone I love has voted and strangers that I don't know have voted. But I have to say, getting your text yesterday, I was like, oh my God, Jay texted me. And I didn't even care. It was, did you vote?
Oh, no, it was really a fun little exercise because I tried to vote everybody whose name I recognized in my contacts. And some people were like, no idea who that was. And in fact,
They were the
one
ones
person-
who needed that text, I would imagine, actually.
probably, but I didn't even know if they were like dead or from, you know what I mean? Like from a million years ago.
Yeah.
So like I texted one person who sounded vaguely familiar, and she was like, do I know you? And I gave her my name. And she said, who is this? And I gave her my name. And then she was like, do you know me? And I was like, I don't know. You're in my contacts. And I was just trying to see if everyone had voted. And then much later, it dawned on me that it was maybe someone Nellie knew. And it was someone she had acted with in plays in high school. So I was able to write her back and go, yes, I'm Nellie Lonergan's mom. She had played Juliet the year before Nellie got there. And then she was in those plays with Nellie her first years.
I see.
Did she vote?
Did.
She vote?
She
Yeah.
did. She voted. That's the
There
point.
you go.
Had she voted?
Had she?
Did anyone say, I haven't voted, thank God you reminded me?
No. It was more of a thing that I said, pass it on, because I thought if everyone talked to everyone they knew, it might, because I think a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah.
I realized I did it the last election too, because I could see there are
Yeah.
people I hadn't talked to since then. You know, but like the people like the hair and makeup and crew people from Rectify and in Georgia, where it really mattered, you know, and they'd all early voted. They were like super, super on it.
You know, I know the presidential election is really important and everything, but you're cutting into my interview a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, nice to see your pretty face.
Wait, are you still doing Juno?
Yes,
Yes, we're in London,
Okay.
where Jay is doing Juno and the Peacock beautifully.
I'm very exhausted. I feel very beat up.
It's very
I'm
great.
sure you do, but I just want people listening to know that they can still see Juno and the Peacock starring J. Smith Cameron and the great Mark Rylance and others. Until when?
November 23rd is the
All
last.
right, so get across the pond very quickly, or if you're already on that side of the world, go see the most magnificent performances in such a special play. Thank you for being our special guest star today.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, and I can't wait for you guys to come back.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll be back soon.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the center at West Park, which this benefit reading with the Starry cast is going to be performing. They are also honoring New York State Assembly member Daniel J. O'Connell on that night. People can just go to center@westpark.org to find out more. Of all the things that could have happened that night, just tell me why you chose Lobby Hero to be the thing that is going to be read.
Well, the reading series that we're doing there, this is the Center at West Park is a new art center or a burgeoning art center on the Upper West Side at 86th in Amsterdam, which is intimately connected with the salvation of the saving of a church, of a 19th century church building there that is in danger of being torn down. So we're both raising money to save the building and raising and building up an art center so that the Landmarks Commission can't accede to the false suggestion that the space is not being used, which is one of the requirements for taking a building off the Landmarks Preservation Commission list. So the building is being used extensively, and the money to repair it and buy it from the congregation that wants to sell it is being raised. So anyway, so the first reading we did to inaugurate our Playwright series was This Is Our Youth, which is a year ago this month. And so Debbie Hirschman, who is our fearless leader who is saving the church, asked if I would do a Lobby Hero reading, just sort of bookend the year. We had Stephen Adley Gerges and Tony Kushner, and we have all sorts of exciting people, Don Leguizamo, and a really, really amazing group of New York theater artists who are all participating in this effort and coming in and doing really amazing work at the center. They've got this beautiful film equipment now, and so they show movies, and showed You Can Count on Me there, and a beautiful screen. It's an amazing space, and I think unless there's some really underhanded city hall shenanigans that somehow get the building wrecked in the face of all of this, which I don't think is going to happen, then I think we're going to have a very a genuine theater center on the Upper West Side, which is pretty exciting.
Well, I really thank you for your time today. I'm so thrilled that this event is happening. Again, just go to center@westpark.org and you'll get all the information, not just about Lobby Hero, but really about all the vital programming that's going on there for the community. Kenny, I am so proud of you, and it's really an amazing thing to think back to that Judith reading
Yeah. I was just thinking
decades and
about that
decades
today.
ago.
I know. I gotta fix that play. That play was almost in good shape, but I often think of going back to it at some point. Oh, and let's not forget to mention my show, Hold On to Me, Darling, which is on at Lortel at the moment until December at overly expensive ticket prices, but which is not my fault. It's a very good show starring Adam Driver and many other wonderful actors.
Up and comer Adam Driver,
Up and comer Adam Driver.
directed by our beloved Neil Pepe. Yeah, Frank Wood and Heather Burns and a stellar cast. Congrats on that. Congrats on everything. I
Thanks,
look forward to
Luana.
seeing you. Of course, love you, honey. See you
Really fun. I
soon.
love you too. Bye.
Bye.